Meanwhile, the angel and her furies are observing all these earthly events from their vantage point in Transitus. They find the complexities of human nature fascinating, perplexing, and endlessly entertaining. And they are determined to resolve this human equation. Oh, poor people.
You think they were crazy. I'd almost say stupid.
Muy buenas a todos, muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes, muy buenas noches. Bienvenidos sean a otro podcast de RTMB Music. Mi nombre es Ignacio de Vincenzi. ¿Cómo están? Espero que muy bien. En este caso estamos con una entrevista. Estoy acompañado acá por mi compañero Iván López. Iván, saluda. ¿Cómo estás?
Hola chicos, ¿cómo están? Espero estén bien. Nosotros ya estamos aquí con el señor Arjen Lucassen, el propietario, dueño del proyecto Ayreon. Mr. Arjen, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much. All is well.
It's a great honor to have you here with us at RTMB, Mr. Arjen. We're huge fans of your work, and of course, we already listened to your Transitus new album. Let me speak for myself and for Nachito. We are amazed by this album. I mean, it's incredible. But we have some questions to make for this album to you. I think that's all right, okay?
Sure, yeah. Glad you enjoyed it. Sure, yeah. Glad you. Yeah.
Yeah, we really love the album. It's gonna really surprise a lot of your fans, and we have so many questions about it. So
Okay, sure.
Whenever you're
Sure.
whenever you're ready, we're gonna start with the
I'm ready.
questions.
Totally ready.
Okay, Ivan. First question goes to you. Let's do this.
Okay, Mr. Arjen. So, well, let me tell you, in my opinion, Transitus is your most theatrical title, okay? In fact, I like to compare it with rock opera's work, like something Andrew Lloyd Webber has done, okay? And I would like to know, how was the direction of this album? Was it your intention to make this new album the most dramatic and most theatrical? Sorry.
Well, first of all, thanks for the big compliment, because to be compared with Andrew Lloyd Webber is a big compliment. So, yeah. Basically, it wasn't even planned as an Ayreon album. It was planned as a movie. You know, it's been my childhood dream to make a movie one day, because I'm a huge movie fan and television series fan, you know. So I set the whole thing up to be a movie. But then, you know, I worked on it for 2 years, and it's hard to make a movie, you know, because it's very expensive. It costs millions and millions of dollars. So, but I was almost very close. And then the whole Corona thing started. And of course, no one is going to put 10 million in a movie in these days. And it's also impossible to make a movie. So at that point, I decided, okay, you know, I think I can release this as an Ayreon, because it has all the Ayreon ingredients, like many singers, like a story, like many different styles of music. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's my most cinematic album I've ever done.
Yeah, actually, it feels like that. I mean, the dialogues and the singing expression of the vocalist making, this whole story, the story as a whole, it feels like a true rock opera. As I told you before, something compared to Andrew Lloyd Webber, such an artist that I love and I care so much. But when I heard for the first time this album, it hit me like a train. I mean, it's beautiful. It's as I told you before, dramatic, theatrical. For me, at least, it's one of my favorite Ayreon albums of all time.
Whoa, I'm honored.
Really. Well, I think Nacho has the next question, Mr. Arjen.
Yeah,
So
sure.
let's roll with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with my friend Ivan here. It's quite a surprise because it feels like a comeback to some of your previous albums, like the Final Experiment or even into the Electric Castle. Even the narration or even the lyrics remind me of the Human Equation. So it has like this comeback some of your some of your recent albums. And compared to recent albums, I can notice a much more focused influence on wind instruments, especially on the sections where the Angel of Death appears, and some even jazz fusion sections like Message from Beyond. That's one of my favorite songs from the album.
Cool.
Is there something you want to tell us about how you came to that direction of the album compared to albums like The Source or even 01?
Yeah, sure. Well, each album I make is a reaction to the previous album. I hate to repeat myself, it's boring for me, but I think it's also boring for the fans. So you mentioned 01 was a very dark and heavy album. So as a reaction to that, I made Theory of Everything, which was a lighter album, was more a prog album. As a reaction to Theory of Everything, I made The Source, which was a pure prog metal album. It was a heavy album. And yeah, so for this album, I felt like doing something very different, doing something warmer. I think The Source, I like it really very much, and I think the Day the World Breaks Down is the best thing I've ever done. But it was a cold album, Cold can be good, but I wanted to make a warm album with this one, with a lot of real instruments, so no samples. Like you say, a lot of wind instrument. It had trumpet and trombone for the first time, and it has a hurdy-gurdy, and it has a dulcimer, and even a toy piano. So
Yeah, I could hear
quite
that.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite different, and I think that's the reason why it's so fresh, and that you kept like evolving your sound and like making a contrast of your previous albums, like the reception. You made like this album in contraption to like The Source, and then you made the Theory of Everything, which is a very prog rock.
Right. Yeah.
Thematic album in comparison to 01. That's really incredible. It makes your music more fluid and more challenging to like compare to just or associate with just one genre. So that's really incredible. So Ivan, you have one question to make now.
Right. But first of all, I would like to agree with Arjen. He said like the previous album from The Source, the Day That the World Breaks Down, is one of the most amazing songs on the. Well, not quoting you on that like that way, but you like that song very much. So do I. I mean, it's one of my favorite songs of the whole discography, and
Yeah, it's amazing.
and I really feel that yes. And I really feel like Transitus is, like you said, warmer. It's something like a cozy meal, something that you can enjoy, you can taste. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing on Transitus. Okay, so Mr. Arjen, my next question is, please tell us the creative process behind an Ayreon story. Do you first make the characters and then you choose the vocalist to perform them, or what's the order on this?
It's very different. I think this album was different than in the past. In the past, I always started with the music. So I have my guitar. I recorded a little idea on a cassette player. Then I have like 50 little ideas. Then I go to the computer. Then I work all these ideas out. And then while I'm working, I hope that the music will inspire me to come up with a story. So at some point, I've got the music and the story. Then I go looking for the singers, because the singers have to fit the music and they have to fit the story. So once I found the singers, I divide the singers over the album. That's the fourth step. And then the final step is, once I've divided them over the album, then I start writing the story, and I even write the characters on the singers. A good example is Fish in Electric Castle. It wasn't like I have a Scottish person in my story. It was like I have fish, so I'm going to write a Scottish person, like the Highlander in my story. But for this album, it was a bit different because it was going to be a movie. So this time I picked the singers. I was hoping that in the movie the singers would be the same, so the singers would act also in the movie. So this time I picked the singers, not just because of their voice, but also because of the way they look, the way they act. Do they fit the characters? Do they have charisma? Do they have acting talent? So this time it was a little bit different. I sort of had the story already before I started. I knew I wanted to do a horror story, do a ghost story. So I really tried to get inspired by ghost movies and by film scores and stuff like that. And usually I don't work that way.
Well, as a whole, it's like a whole process. I mean, you're not dealing with just a piece of album. I mean, you're working with making characters, making a story. You're working with such things that makes it complicated, right? So that's one of the ways you can see Ayreon, one of the most unique projects out there.
Thank you. Well, people always think that it's very complex, that you have a story and you have all these characters and you have all these different styles. But for me, it makes it easy. For me, it would be much harder to come up with an album with 15 songs, with 15 different topics. That would be terrible. Like, oh, what is this next song about? But now I have this one story. So I start telling the story with the first song, and then slowly it develops, and like for instance, the Human Equation. It's about a man in a coma, and it's 20 days of his life. So I wrote the lyrics in 20 days, and I started with the first lyric, and then I was like really curious what would happen the next day because I had no idea yet. So I was. For me, that makes it easy. I'm just telling myself a story, and then I put it to music. It's much easier than other bands who have to come up with so many different songs, and for me it's one big story.
Yeah. I wanna take a part of what you said, and not only you make characters and music, but you also display emotions on your tracks. I think one of the big trademarks of your sound, of the Ayreon story arc and your albums, is how you portray emotions on each track, on each character. I'm gonna get into that later on one of the questions that I have for you. But I wanna expand on what Ivan said previously. I've seen some of your making of videos. I think it was like Star One, the making of Victims of a Modern Age. And you were composing riffs based on something you were watching at the moment, or something that you had read or even listened. So there was anything in particular at this point that inspired you to make Transitus, like something you had read, something you had listened?
Oh yeah, very much so. I like I said earlier, I watched a lot of rock musicals. So I watched, you guys mentioned Andrew Lloyd Webber. I watched Jesus Christ Superstar. I watched Evita, and I watched Tommy, and I watched The Wall, and I watched War of the Worlds, and all these kind of. I listened to the albums, and usually. I don't want to be too influenced by other music, but this time I was. I just listened to all this. Also Ennio Morricone, his film music was beautiful, and Jerry Goldsmith, who did the great music for the movie The Omen, with this big choir, and this time I was allowing myself to be influenced by film scores, by movies, by rock operas, and I think if you listen closely, you can hear all these influences. I hope they are not too obvious,
No.
but they are definitely there.
No, no. If it like I'm not a Ivan is more of like a rock opera fan than me. He would have noticed. What I can notice is that I can hear some of your previous album sounds influenced on this album. Like there's one track, I think it was the last track. It reminded me so much of the Universal Migrator Part 2, Flight of the Migrator. Like that heavy sound, it reminded me of the riff of Down of a Million Souls. There are parts that remind me of the Dream Sequencer with those progressive rock solos. Like it's like very influenced some of your previous album. That's what makes it like it makes it fresh. It really makes it fresh.
Cool.
So
Well,
I really like that.
I think what you're talking about, and I heard that before. I think it's the chorus in Talk of the Town.
Yes.
That some people compare it to Dawn of a Million Souls. Other people compare it to Digital Rain, which was a song on my second Star One album, Victim of the Modern Age. But the funny thing is, I totally stole it from Rainbow with Stargazer. You know? That's where I got it from.
What an amazing track! What an amazing track!
I know. You have like da 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 when the heat and the rain, da 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 the whips and chain, you know, and I just took that and made it my own. So Talk of the Town is da 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 da, you know. It's so yeah. It's let's say it's inspired.
Yeah, very inspired, and that's really amazing, I have to say. Okay, Ivan. So next question.
Well, you already told us how you choose your cast, Mr. Arjen. Okay, but also the faces that we see on Transitus were being already on the source. We would like to know, why did you bring them back? I mean, it's amazing to have Tommy Caverick and Simon Simons back. I mean, those are amazing singers. But we would like to know, why do you think they are like the best material, the best voice material to bring them back for this new story?
A very good question. And I basically already sort of answered it in an earlier answer. For this story, I wanted people who could act in the movie. So I was looking for people who look good and people who are charismatic. And immediately, the first two people who came to my mind were Tommy and Simona, because they're like beautiful people, you know. They're people you like to look at. And they have a lot of charisma. So they were the first two on my list. Like, I was like, okay, they will be the two main characters. And basically, Tommy was going to play Daniel, the rich man's son, which he also did, and Simona was going to play the poor servant girl. But then I heard Cammy, and with Oceans of Slumber, and I loved her voice so much, and I looked on YouTube, and I thought she was a dark girl. And then I was like, it would even be cooler if she would be the servant, you know, because then you have another taboo, you know. It plays in the 19th century, and it's basically two worlds, like Tom Baker says in the intro. It's two worlds divided. It's rich and poor, but also black and white, you know. It was not allowed to mix that. So I thought that the story would be so much more interesting with Cammy in that part. So I contacted her, and luckily she really liked my music already before I asked her. And she would love to be part of it, and she totally understands that would make the story more interesting. So, of course, then I had to find another part for Simone. And so that's the way I work, you know. I just keep changing stuff. And then at some point I came up with the whole Transitus part and the Angel of Death. So basically it's just there because Simona was there.
About Cammy Gilbert, you know, we had the pleasure to have an interview with her, and she told us the whole process. She's such an amazing singer. She has so much potential on her sentimental voice. You know, I think Cammy just got to the point on her character. And I would like to know, Mr. Arjen, how did you came up with well, not how you came up. I mean, how would you feel to talent some new underground vocalist on your Iron album? I mean, Cami Gilbert is kind of in a way like an underground vocalist on the progressive metal territory. How would you feel to have some new vocalists? How would you discover them?
On Ayreon albums, I think it's always a mix. There's always some big names, but there's always also some not so big names. But at some point, these not so big names, they become big names. Like when I had Floor on my Universal Migrator album, no one knew Floor. She just started out. She was 19 years old, and now she's like the biggest star in the world almost. And same with Sharon from Within Temptation. She was on my what album was she on?
Into the Letters Castle. Castle. Yeah.
And that was way before Within Temptation was that big, and so I love to give new talent a chance. So I get a lot of tips from fans, which I always check out. I read a lot of magazines, and if I read that like a singer is really good, I always go to YouTube and I check it out. But I'm very, very, very particular where singers are concerned. 99% of the singers I don't like. It's really, and it's personal. If somebody can be an amazing singer, but still, for me, it's all about the sound of the voice has to attract me. And even an amazing singer, I cannot touch me maybe. So yeah, it's very personal. But I'm always on the lookout. And as soon as I hear a singer that I like, I have this little list, and I put him or her on that list.
Okay. Well, on that note, I would like to thank you for mentioning Floor because I actually met her music thanks to the Dream Sequencer. Before she even joined Nightwish, I met her thanks to you. It was like, wow, what an amazing discovery. And yeah, you're always known for like discovering these amazing artists like Floor, even Mike Mills. Like Mike Mills went like super well known in the progressive rock / metal industry thanks to the theory of everything, because his performance was like incredible. So that's incredible. It's amazing how you like bring out these underground artists and make them shine on your albums. And like Ivan said, we are big fans of Oceans of Thunder. It's a really interesting band, very melancholic, and I think that Cami, the decision of like bringing Cami into this album was perfect, because her voice it just fits on the album perfectly, like in this sort of light and darkness thing that you're doing with Transitus. So my next question, it's not about vocalists, but it's about guitarists and musicians. So I'm quite interested because in your teasers, like you were like playing with your fans, saying that it was Satriani, it was like Steve Vai, it was Petrucci. So how do you get in touch with Joe Satriani and Marty Friedman to be part of the lineup?
I had the honor to work with the best singers in the world, like Floor and Russell Allen and Jorn Lande and Mikkel Akerveld, Devin Townsend. It's dreams coming true.
Yeah.
So for guitar players, I start at the top. I just, which is my all-time favorite, and I make a list, and it's like Satriani and Steve Vai and Brian May and Michael Schenker and Yngwie Malmsteen. So I just contact them. And a journalist in Holland helped me with Joe Satriani, because Joe Satriani won a guitar award in Holland, and the guy who organized it gave me the number of his manager. So I contacted Joe's manager, and the manager said, he gets so many offers, and he just, he only does few of them. He rarely ever does it. So I'll tell Joe, but, don't wait for it. And I suggest you try to reach other guitar players. And then within 3 days, I got an email from a guy called Joseph, and I was like, "Who is this?" And it was a mail from Joe, and he said, "Hey man, I heard the part, and I really, really loved it, and immediately I went into my studio and I recorded a solo for you. Here it is." And I was
Oh
like,
my God.
what? And I played it, and it was so wild and crazy, and exactly what I wanted for that song. And I asked him, "Well, what do you want for it?" And he was like, "No, it's I love it. It's here. It's a present, and enjoy." So
Aw,
yeah, what a great guy. What a fantastic guy, and what a big talent. And
such a humble person, a really good
I
guitarist.
know, yeah. And Marty Friedman, it was, I needed another solo, and it had to be more melodic, and it had to be more of a story. It was in your favorite song, Message from Beyond.
Yeah, amazing.
It had this whole end part, and it was a minute long, so it had to have this build up. And I was discussing with the boss of the record company, because he does a lot of guitar albums. And he said, "Well, that's perfect for Marty Friedman," and he knew him, so he had a direct email address from him. So I just sent it to Marty Friedman, and he thought it was a weird song. because like you said, it has that jazzy part. Suddenly it turns into this jazzy part, and he said it's strange, but he said it's strange in a good way, and I'll play a solo for you. And he said it might take a few weeks, but I think within 1 week I already got his finished solo. And again, I was totally like, "Oh yes, this is exactly what the song needs."
Wow, that's very surprising. Like you said, you have invited so many good guitarists in the past. For example, the first name that comes to my mind right now is Guthrie Govan.
He's the best. Yeah, he's the best. It's amazing.
So, well, you have. I assume you have like a list of guitarists. So, is there any guitarist you have left to invite, like that one that's missing on your album?
Well, I came very close to Steve Vai on this album. He listened to the part, and he loved the part, and he loved the sound, and he was like, "I love it, and try me another time, because I'm like really too busy at the moment." I also once contacted Brian May, and I actually got a nice handwritten letter from him. It was maybe 10 years ago. It was a handwritten, and he has like a terrible handwriting, so I could hardly read it. But of course, I kept it forever. I cherish it, and he said that he was too busy with Queen, and he just couldn't do it. So yeah, I've got like a list of guitar players. Of course, I asked David Gilmour, who's my absolute favorite,
Oh my.
but he was not interested. He doesn't like that kind of music, and that's of course his thing. He grew up in a different time, and he probably listens to totally different music. So that's too bad. But I can do a good Gilmour myself. So.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, Ivan, next question is goes to you.
Yeah, okay. Now, Mr. Arjen, undoubtedly, a great addition to this album is Tom Baker's voice. I mean, as a narrator, he's amazing, and he just fits perfectly with this story that you created. Now, tell us, how did you come up to contact him? Any fear that, I don't know, maybe he would reject this offer?
Well, again, I didn't put my money on just one horse, which means that I contacted about 10 actors, because it's a very, very difficult world, and it's a very expensive world. You pay a lot of money for these people, and they're all very busy, and you never get to talk to them directly. It's always agencies or publishers or companies. So yeah, I just kept trying, and at some point I got to a voice agency who was representing Tom Baker, and first you negotiate about the price, then you agree on a price, and then the next step for them is they go to the artist. So they ask Tom Baker and they tell him, "Hey, man, are you interested to do this rock opera?" And they give him the story and the text. And luckily, he loved it because we wrote it especially for him. We wrote it with his voice in mind and with his character in mind. And I knew exactly, because I grew up with Tom Baker. He was Doctor Who for 8 years, and that was in my teens. That's what was when I was watching every episode and buying every DVD. Or in those days it was still VHS or even Betamax. But luckily he did it, and I went to England to record him, and it was one of the best days of my life, because he loved it so much, and he had so much input, and he had so many ideas himself, and he was totally the Doctor. He wasn't different. He's 86 now, but he hadn't changed one little bit, and so I don't think I'm glad that any of the other actors didn't do it, because he was perfect for this.
It appears that you had a lot of fun, like casting Tom Baker for the narrator performance. Like it feels like it was a dream come true. Am I right?
It's totally true, and it becomes addictive. The first actor I asked was Rutger Hauer.
Yeah, Rutger Hauer
from Blade Runner, from the solo album, and he said yes, and it was like, oh my God, my hero, And then for Electric Castle Live, I asked John Delancey, who was Q in Star Trek, and again, oh my God, I got him, and I met him, and he was such a nice guy. We had so much fun, and then it becomes addictive. You want more. So yeah, now I've got Tom Baker, and who knows who I'm going to ask next. I'm not. It's become an addiction now. It would depend on the album, of course, and it would depend on the narration and the kind of story. But yeah, it's a list of like 30 actors that I made, so it's too many to mention here.
Okay. Okay, so this is a little question that, since you mentioned that you have contacted some other actors, sorry, for the narration. Are there any names that you could tell us, or?
Well, I came pretty close to Whoopi Goldberg.
Wow.
She was in Star Trek, of course, so and she loved that idea and the fact that I already did something with John Delancey. But I had to become a member of an actors guild in the US, and that was very, very complicated. It's a kind of a union. You have
the union.
You have to become, you have to become a member of this union, and it's very hard to enter and very expensive. And I put too much time in that, and it just didn't work out. So unfortunately, then I came very close to Gillian Anderson, who plays Scully in the X-Files. You have to think, like, if you want her, you have to think 6 figures for one day, so that's pretty much, and it was just too much. It was too much. So and I came close to Malcolm McDowell, who of course played Caligula, and we know him from Clockwork Orange. He was great there. So yeah, I got close to some of them, but as I said, I'm so glad, that none of that happened, and that I worked with Tom.
Yeah, Tom is like, for me, like, it was the perfect atmosphere, mood, delivery.
Right.
It's so dramatic. I just loved it.
It's dramatic, but still it has humor, and that's the cool thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the clip of This Human Equation with Simone that we put on a couple of days ago. It has this intro, and he says, like, this human equation, and suddenly he starts laughing, like, oh, poor people. And that's totally improvised, that's totally, he just did that at that moment. I was like sitting there.
Wow.
laughing and with goosebumps and yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and another example, like I think of, like when it goes like this, funny part is when he narrates the intro to "Dumb Piece of Rock."
Right, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
so well, I can't like leave out this question behind because it's such a part of the album. So I want to talk about the comic book that is a companion to this album. So how was the process to contact Felix Vega to make Transitus a story worthy of a comic book? How would that came into mind?
Well, I first contacted Claudio Bergamin, who did the artwork for my solo album, because he is like a comic book artist. But the solo album, we worked on that for half a year. I drove him totally crazy. So the first thing he said, "Hey man, I'll never work with you again," but in a funny way, you know. But he just said it takes me
so
too much
mean.
time. It's too much time to work with you because you're too much of a perfectionist. But he said, "I'll help you," and he gave me a couple of addresses, and then he sent me to another Claudio who had a publishing company, and this Claudio sent me like 10 artists. And he said, "Well, here, see if there's one you like." And I came to Felix Vega, and I was like, "Oh my God, those colors! You know, that's totally the person I want." And then this guy said, "Well, that's good because he likes this music. You know, he likes Pink Floyd, and he likes David Bowie, and he likes. He's probably will like your music, and that's very important for me. You know, that we can inspire each other. That." I sent him music to inspire him with his drawing, and he sends me drawings, and it inspires me for the music. And so yeah, we worked on that for I think a year. And I told him, I warned him at first that I'm a total control freak and total perfectionist, and that I have, you know, each page I know exactly what I want to see. And I sent him, I will send you exact instructions, and I will even send you sketches. And he said, "That's great, you know, I'll make it my own. I'll put my own soul into it." And it's cool because all this whole thing is in the earbook. So in the earbook you will see the sketches and you will see all my suggestions. So yeah, that's a cool feature.
Yeah, there's something that really struck into me the first time that I checked the comic book that came with the press kit. It's such the colors, how vibrating they are.
I know. Yeah.
It totally goes with the atmosphere of the album, like the fires, for example, the fires at the beginning of the comic book. They're so well done. The expressions on the characters, and of course they match with the faces of the vocalists, but it's so well done.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
That's really cool. And just like, for example, the last part of the comic book, which I'm not going to say anything because spoiler alert, but it's just so well done. How it's all portrayed, like really something really unique and interesting for this
cool
whole concept that is Ayreon itself.
Cool.
So
I have to tell you,
yeah.
I have another interview in 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah, so just so you know.
Oh, okay. Ivan?
Yeah, okay, don't worry, Mr. Arjen. Okay, now
Cool.
I would like to know what place does Transitus takes within your discography?
It's I think it's the most different Ayreon album I've done in the last 10 years. So
Yeah.
I've already had the question like, will you do a part 2 or whatever? But no, this is a sidestep. You know, the next Ayreon will probably be more like the Source or more like 01. Probably a little bit heavier, probably a bit more instrumental parts, a bit more virtuoso solos and stuff like that. So I see it as a sidestep, and I had more sidestep. You know, Actual Fantasy was a sidestep. I think Theory of Everything was a sidestep. You know, just a little bit out of the comfort zone out of the Ayreon comfort zone. So that's how I see Transitus.
Yeah, it's really unique. It doesn't follow like the structure your previous album. So I agree with you that it's quite an interesting piece that you have done on this album.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, we have one last question for you. So
Sure.
you can go ahead with your other interview. This is a question that we do with all our interviews. It's like a trademark question of the blog. So, how does your musical approach relate to other artistic expressions, such as a painting, film, literature, etc.? Anything in particular that you associate with it?
Well, of course, this album is very much influenced by movies, like you said, and very much influenced by other rock operas. I hear a lot of Jesus Christ Superstar in it. In a movie, I see a lot of, for instance, like The Omen or Jaws, or even the movie Ghost. So that's definitely for this album where I took my inspiration. And of course, Doctor Who, because of my
Tom Baker.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tom Baker. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's everything. We had some other questions on mind, but we unfortunately we can't do them. So
Sorry,
Arjen,
man, sorry.
Don't worry, Arjen.
Don't worry, Mr. Arjen.
Don't worry, Arjen.
I know you
well,
have your
okay.
schedule, and you're a
We have
very
a-
busy man, so
You're
do not
very
worry.
busy.
To have you here, it's something bigger for us. Don't worry.
Great, man. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed the talk, so I hope you did too.
Yeah, we have Arjen, and I would like to thank you because I have been a fan of your work since like 8 years, and
Whoa,
having the
whoa.
8 years. It's been a long time, and having the pleasure to talk with you, to finally talk with you after so much years, it feels like a dream come true to me. And I really want to thank you because you're such a humble person, and your answers are so genuine and really. You really speak with such passion for your music, so I really want to thank you for it, because your music is something that I always listen to, and it always gives me a smile. So
Excellent. I'm glad
Thank you.
Glad I've been able to do that for you, man. And
Thank
I'm
you so
honored by your beautiful words. Okay, Ignacio,
Okay.
Ivan, I'm gonna do the next interview.
okay, Arjen.
Okay, man.
Good luck.
Saludos.
Saludos,
desde
Arjen.
Holanda. Okay.
Saludos.
Saludos, Arjen. Muchísimas gracias.
Saludos a Argentina.
Bye,
Muchas gracias,
bye.
Arjen. Bye bye.
Take care, Mr. Arjen.
Muy bien, bueno, esa fue nuestra entrevista con Arjen Lucassen. Espero que les haya gustado. Lamentablemente no logramos hacer todas las preguntas que teníamos en mente, pero bueno, como verán, Arjen es una persona con una agenda muy ocupada, pero logramos conseguir preguntas que de verdad eran importantes para la entrevista. Así que, Iván, ¿qué te pareció?
Me encantó hablar con él. Lamentablemente siento que no tuve la oportunidad de hablar lo suficiente justamente por, bueno, temas de conexión, ¿qué más da? Pero tenerlo, aunque sea en una llamada telefónica, fue increíble. O sea, me habría encantado que hubiese respuesto a alguna otra pregunta que teníamos. Le íbamos a preguntar sobre Tobias Sammet, David Townsend, o sea, era una cosa completamente distinta. Las otras preguntas que teníamos. Y bueno, si hay algo que podemos decir de Arjen es que ha tocado el corazón de muchos, particularmente a mí, que me encanta la ópera rock, estos discos conceptuales de Andrew Lloyd Webber, como Jesucristo Superestrella y todo eso. Ayreon es algo de lo que más se acerca, si no es que el proyecto que más se acerca a esta clase de cosas que me ha encantado y que despierta en mi corazoncito una calidez que me hace sonreír cada vez que escucho cualquier disco de Ayreon.
Es lo que le dije. Es uno de los pocos artistas que cada vez que escucho un tema de él, lo único que hace es darme una sonrisa. Literalmente, que la primera vez que estuve escuchando Transitus, lo único que podía hacer era sonreír. Tenía una sonrisa de punta a punta. Así que esperemos que fans de Ayreon opinen de la misma manera, o aquellos que todavía no están muy metidos en la música de Arjen le den una oportunidad, porque la verdad que es un proyecto muy interesante. Así que bueno, Iván, quiero darte las gracias por haber sido mi acompañante en esta entrevista. Y bueno, Para aquellos que nos están escuchando, Transitus sale el 25 de septiembre bajo el sello Mascot Label Group, así que en unas pocas semanas van a poder tener el placer de escuchar el disco y esperemos que les guste y muchísimas gracias por participar en la entrevista con nosotros, por escucharnos. Y bueno, Iván, ¿alguna otra palabra para cerrar?
Chicos, esperen el nuevo disco de Ayreon. Si son fanáticos de este proyecto, no los va a decepcionar, definitivamente. Fue un placer estar con Arjen. Y Nacho, ¿qué opinas? Yo creo que es una de las cosas más grandiosas que ha pasado en nuestra vida, aunque sea por un pequeño momento.
Sí, la verdad que es un sueño hecho realidad, haber tenido la oportunidad de hablar con Arjen por unos minutitos. La verdad que es un sueño hecho realidad. Como te dije, fan de Arjen y de todos sus otros proyectos, Star One, Guild Machine, The Gentle Storm, Stream of Passion, desde que tengo, no sé, muchos años. Muchos años han pasado.
me pasa.
Adolescencia.
Estoy
Así que nada, fue un placer y fue un placer tenerte a vos como compañero acá en la entrevista. Así que bueno, como dije antes, les agradezco muchísimo a todos los que nos están escuchando y espero verlos próximamente en otra entrevista. Así que les mando un gran saludo y espero que estén bien. Muchas gracias.